Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gail Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
Hi, everyone. I have a wonderful guest for you today by the name of Mark Hanna. Mark grew up in Inglewood, California, adjacent to the Hollywood Park horse track, and that's where his love of horses began. And he pursued his passion to become an Arabian horse breeder and imported horses from Europe. His compassion and spiritual bond with horses led him to become the horse listener. He can help people with the fundamental and proper way to be with your horse, a lifetime partnership. Hanna shares his life story in this Horse Listener, an international best-selling book, and the first book of an anticipated trilogy. Well, welcome, Mark. I'm glad to have you with us. I have to tell you, I'm not a horse person, but I am an animal person, and I've ridden horses, and I love horses. In fact, I almost bought a place in Colorado where I could keep a horse, but I've got to say I'm limited to dogs and cats right now. So welcome to the
show. Thank you. I appreciate it. And evidently you're down in Florida. I used to live up in Georgia by Macon. So I like the climate and all that. I'm glad you like animals, but because really they're all about the same, because really the way that I communicate is through their nature, basically. And as you know an animal and as you are with them spiritually, basically you're dealing with them in their nature, because both of us are conflicting with each other because our natures are totally opposite, predator and then also prey.
Well, it's interesting because, I had two cats. Well, when my kids were little, I had 5 dogs and 3 cats. Anyway, I ended up with 2 cats, and I had to put one of my cats down about 3 weeks ago. And my other cat, who is now, I think she's almost 3, was never a talker, and she never, she was a great cat, but she just was, whatever. And now she is top cat. She is with me all the time, wherever I am, like a dog, talks to me all day long. And it's really interesting to see how she's come out of her shell and she's blossomed. So I know that
you believe yes, indeed.
Yeah, they have spirits and they communicate with us. And I know that when I have gone to places where I've ridden horses, or I also went to a facility where they use horses for therapy, and the ability for that horse to relate to me as I was leading him around, certain exercises, it was just amazing to me. And yet I know there are some people who are absolutely scared to death of them. So what's your comment on that?
Well, horses, they communicate very, very simply. I mean, they don't speak. Of course, they might whinny or something like that. But their body language is really important. And for me, what I've found out, and that's why my book is named The Horse Listener, I've become so sensitive that I can read the horse's mind somewhat by pictures. I've also known them by their body language for such a long time. But when you're looking at a horse as far as spiritually, or as far as the way that they communicate, because they are responding by instinct, they know what's important to succeed in keeping safe, and they'll know if you're afraid or if you're not afraid. And what they're going to do if they continue to connect with you, then they help you to survive just like they have. And so when you're looking at a therapy is one where horses experience some, let's say, negative things in their lives, and they've succeeded in being safe. the people that they're being used for therapy have the same reactions and the same experiences in their life. So they really relate to you. And if you've ever seen horses, especially the Arabian horse, which is really sensitive, and that's not being really blocking any other horse's sensitivities, but they're very, very, very sensitive because that's the way that they were raised. They were, for thousands of years, or let's say hundreds of years, they've become sensitive because the Bedouin used to keep them in their tents. The mares used to babysit their children. The children would drink the mare's milk and dates and all that sort of thing, and they would just protect them, never step on them. And that's it's really amazing. I love using horses for therapy. I used to work at a boys ranch down in Arivaca, Arizona, which is Arivaca Boys Ranch. And we used horses for therapy. Not only that, because when we deal with horses, the boys learn to compensate for their problems because the horses help them because they both understand each other.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's phenomenal what animals can do for people and horses in particular. And it's interesting. I remember a cute story. This is when I was a kid. Of course, I'm going back to the when was it? It had to be the 40s. And our I don't know whether it was our bakery guy or the milk guy, but anyway, they had a wagon with a horse, and that used to deliver. I guess it must have been I don't know because we had both. But anyway, my mother always gave the horse a sugar cube, and it was so funny when that horse came down the side street. We were on a corner, and when that horse came down on the side street and knew that the next stop was our house, that driver could not keep that horse from rounding the corner because he wanted that sugar cube. And it was so funny.
I know. They remember. Yeah, they definitely remember.
Amazing. It was just amazing. And I remember seeing that. And I don't know, I've always been an animal person all my life. My mother told me that when I was a baby, she could never get me to go to sleep. But she started putting stuffed animals in my crib, and I was out like a light. So I've just always been that kind of person. So what is the best way and the fundamental way to communicate with your horse or any horse?
Like I've said before, I communicate with them spiritually, or let's say understanding their nature and all that sort of a thing. But the way that helped me, the way I found out about it was it was kind of like by accident. But at the time, I was undergoing a lot of stress, and I was spiritually deprived as far as feelings and all that sort of thing. And then I had a really big, let's say, epiphany, which helped me to start understanding things. When I was trimming a horse's feet, I could not do any of his feet. He wouldn't let me. And I went up in front of him, looked in his eyes, and said, "What is your problem?" And all of a sudden, like an end-of-life video, pictures and all, video and all, went through my mind of all of his negativities, bad experiences, anything in his life that basically he answered my question. And it blew me away, but I instinctively answered his question, "Well, I understand." And then he let me trim all four of his feet. But what I realized is that because God created us and the horses, and especially the horse was made for man, if we communicate them on their level, meaning that we become part of their life by understanding who they are, why they want to survive, and all those different things, if we don't complicate the matters by us trying to become ourselves, which is, golly, we're the kind of guy that wants to grab a hold and make them submit and all that sort of thing, a predator. So if we understand them down to the basic level, and we're talking about in their minds, in the things that they keep so sacred in their lives, which is safety and then food, and then they have some fun. When I experienced that, then I started getting so sensitive that I could walk up to a horse and read their minds. I could look at a movie and look at the horses that are having these extras riding them, and I'd see them say, "Oh, God, would you get this guy off of me? He doesn't know how to ride worth beans." So it's interesting how you become sensitive to that, but it's real. And then for my horses, there's a lot of things that, and I need to promote this group. We're talking about Frederick Pagnon and Magali Delgado. They're the co-founders of Cavalia. They're very, very sensitive, and their way of being is the way that I try to succeed in my life. And so that's something that it's not really known too much. If you start out with like a cowboy who needs a horse every, let's say, 2 weeks because they wear the other one out, they've got to go get a fresh horse and break it and put it on the string. So those things they're good to utilitarian-wise, but if you're going to have a relationship with a horse, you need to be on their level. You need to understand them and understand why they're doing something. And I have a basically philosophy that what I try to do when I deal with a horse, because I'm sensitive and because I know how they react and I know what their nature is, I can think about what they expect of me because they've experienced bad things before. And I can, before that happens, not do that particular thing or motion or whatever it was that would have caused him to react differently. And by doing that, I don't fulfill his expectation. So therefore, he becomes more sensitive and more trusting in me. But the other thing is, because a horse is very instinctual because they want to survive, if something happens to them which is bad or something that caused them pain before, they're not going to let that happen again. So they're going to do something in opposition to not allow that to happen. So if a horse is going to oppose me and I know that's going to happen, I don't fulfill his expectation, and I continue to do that until the point where this horse trusts me and he'll allow me to be his alpha, I guess you could say. But there is one thing. I have a younger mare that was with her mother for forever, because that's how I raised my horses together. And she didn't know what her place was in the herd. But I was told by Frederick of Cavalia, he said, this mare does not know what her place is. She needs to know if she is head of the household or head of the herd or whatever. And I went to her and I expressed to her, I said, well, look, I'm sorry about that. You be the head of the herd. And then instantaneously our relationship improved. She stopped being fearful. And now she's the one that goes out and reacts when there's danger in anything. And then, of course, I go and say, okay, hey, great. Everything's fine. Let's go ahead and go back and eat. Of course, I'm not going to eat their hay, but that's basically what they're saying.
So why did you write The Horse Listener, and why is it going to be part of a trilogy?
Well, my experience with horses has been, well, like you said, I lived near Hollywood Park. As soon as I saw those horses, smelled the horses, saw the horses coming out of the fog and the racetrack clippity-cloppity and the crowds, that was it. I wanted to be with horses for the rest of my life. So what I did in order to do that is I worked over in Catalina Island on Arabian horse ranches. That's all I did out through high school. And then in order to see many horses, not just work on one ranch where you have 5 horses, but to see as many horses as possible, I transported horses. And I transported some of the most famous Arabian horses in the world. I was their special horse transporter because at that time I must have been sensitive enough to be able to be trusted that way. But I wanted to be just like the trainers who had those horses in training. So for me, I emulated those guys. I followed them to all the horse shows, all the national shows all over the world. And I wanted to be like them. So when I bought my first Arabian horse, let's say my first stallion that I really concentrated on, prior to that, I tried to buy a horse which is the subject of the book. His name was Chavan. But this Spanish Arabian, Zalamero, he was a horse that I raised, and I loved him dearly. When I tried to emulate these trainers using their methods, which I thought was okay, well, like a boxer, when I was using the whip to move him back and forth, which is what you do with a whip, just like you're using your hand, extension of your hand. That horse, because I was using these methods, he reached out and touched me rather strongly with his teeth, grabbing my shoulder, lifting me up, violently tossing me to the ground. And when that happened, my first reaction was, because, see, I was very angry young man. I wanted to do everything because let's say I was teased and everything, so I overcompensated. So my thought was, okay, you overcompensate, you become strong, and the horse will, submit to you and all that sort of thing. Well, I loved this colt, and he loved me, but he was letting me know that he wanted to survive more than being, right at that time, my buddy. So I realized that, and like I said before, God created these horses. He created us. We came down together. I feel like we're spirits, and we knew each other before we came here. And especially when you have horses that are your soulmates, there's a little innate voice that comes that God gave you when he sent us down here. And that innate voice was, be kind and have courage and be true to yourself. Right at that time, it was like a loudspeaker came into my mind. You better listen to these things. So I sat there and I cried with this colt as he's shivering in fear. Totally changed my life at that time, and the epiphany came that I would never allow that happen again. So my whole thing is, once that colt and I became partners, we were undefeated, but still, let me put this in perspective. The people I'm emulating are in an industry that became very powerful, but it's an old industry of Arabian horse breeding that's been around for hundreds of years. There are passionate breeders that have farms that are very, very old and traditional, but the powers that be, let's say you have bad, which is evil, and you have good, which is basically God's principles. Anything that's in that realm, the contrast is so stark that the bad breaks it down and destroys something, and the good is what keeps it going and propels it for future growth. What I found is that here I am with one of the best Arabian, let's say the best quality Arabian horses in the country, and I wasn't winning at a national level because the trainers, or let's say the people that were not using the best methods, were winning because they're winning with everything when they use everything to win at all costs. It means that, okay, if you destroy the horse, that's all right. If you destroy the breeding farm or the breeding traditions of the hundreds of years, that's okay. So what's happened is, as a result of that, we have horses that were, the Arabian industry was breeding about 30,000 and registering 30,000 horses a year. Now there's about 300 to 1,000 a year being registered. And in contrast, you go to the Arabian Nationals in 1985, in the Stallion National Championship finals, 30,000 people in the audience, screaming, yelling, everybody's there. Nowadays, there's about 300 people in the audience. So things are being destroyed, and the base of all of the industry is disappearing, and these passionate horse trainers are losing their base, and they're losing their shirts, just like these other breeders who've been doing this sold out. They're sent to auction. The kill buyers there, we'll get some nice meat to go to Mexico, go to Japan, whatever. So that's happening now. We are destroying bloodlines that have been around for hundreds of years. You can't replace them unless you've frozen the semen or gotten some embryos or something like that. So the reason why I wrote that book is to allow people to understand through my writing, through my life experience, using fictional characters which are based on characters that I've either known or juxtaposing myself for another character. And I wrote that book to help people realize what's happening, and also strive to teach young people how to do it properly from the start, rather than learning that you're a horse listener at age 55. You can become a horse listener when you're a lot younger. And that is what really makes the difference. So my next two books are going to be based on that whole principle of passionate horse breeders that have been in it, training and losing, but they're succeeding, but their base is gone. Those people's epiphany are going to result in them going out in the third book and finding these Arabian horse bloodlines and resurrecting them or preserving them, just like General Patton did with the Spanish riding school, the Polish horses during World War II. So my reason for writing the book is that way.
It's really a story to behold, and it's really wonderful that you're doing something like this, but it's also tragic that all of this is happening, because Arabian horses are absolutely magnificent. And, to know that they're being destroyed, and that the bloodlines are being destroyed, and that all of these things are happening, with everything else that's going on in the world, Mark, this just seems to be one more thing to add to the problems that we have. So I'm glad there's someone like you that are, that are out there, working on this. Yeah, go ahead.
Imagine greed, politics, and abuse. Those three things didn't exist. Well, of course, they exist in the world, but not the kind of abuse and putting that into play when you're dealing with horses that are old, and the tradition and the foundations of the light breeds of horses in the world. You just can't replace that. So those three things are destroying things in this world, along with the Arabian industry, along with horses in general. There's a lot of horses that are out there doing well, but I want kids, I want people that are new, and people that have been into it a long time, to get them reinvigorated. And that's the reason why my book is there. Now, I'm striving to make this into a movie. Back when COVID started its evil thing, back in a year ago, I had an agent and a screenwriter and a script happening. And now there's no Hollywood, so that's kind of at a standstill. But my talent, everything I've done in my life, my music, my writing, all the things that I've done, and my sensitivity, I believe it's going to be the next Black Stallion series. The Black Stallion by Walter Farley and all of his.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left, Mark. So if someone wanted to be in touch with you, how would they reach you?
Well, first you can go to Mark M. Hanna, all smalls, markmhanna.com. That's a website where there's a lot of articles that you can read, that you can get motivated by giving you a little bit of positive energy. You can also reach me through that website to find my book, and you can purchase that, and I can autograph it and send it to you through that website. Also, there are a lot of wonderful articles that are out there that you can find if you were to Google them, and you'll see these articles similar to what you're hearing right now in this podcast. There's also through Amazon, you can go there and find the book, and you can read it through Kindle. You can order the book and purchase it for yourself, and this is all over the world. You can purchase this, of course, through Amazon. I was noted as a internationally best-selling author, so those countries that have these books, they're available for all the Amazon system. You can also reach me. I live in Cedar City, Utah, and if you go to my Facebook page, this page is Mark M. Hanna, Easily and Effortlessly the Horse Listener, and in there you can find similar projects, similar different messages and articles and things that are very important in providing a good foundation for horsemanship. That also, and you can see lots of wonderful pictures and such. And on my Facebook personal page, you can find my phone number, and you can find how to contact me that way. I also would love to do clinics, because for me, teaching is really important to provide a foundation for young people and all those other people alike that are passionate about horses. And of course, the Arabian horse, there's something about them. Wouldn't you agree, Gail?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a friend of mine breeds them in Ocala, Florida. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was doing it. And of course, Ocala, as you know, is big horse country.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really interesting. But it's all a part of this, Joe and Mark, and Joe, our producer. I know has been listening to all of this, and I don't know. I know he loves dogs. I can't talk about horses, but I tell you something. The fact that you're out there, you're talking about this, the fact that you want to work with kids, the fact that you're doing different therapies, I just think it's wonderful. I think it's necessary. I think it's what we need. So I want to encourage everybody to go to Mark's website, which is Mark M. Hanna, HANNA.com. Go to his Facebook page, which is The Horse Listener. You'll find his
or
information.
easily and effortlessly, and Mark M. Hanna, just make sure.
Yeah, Mark M. Hanna, right. That's what I have on the website. And, this is a part of where we're going and what's important. And hopefully it gives people, it just makes them better people, Mark. It just makes them more humane and better people. And they end up treating other people better, too, not just animals, but other people. So this is all a part of it,
Yes, because
really
if I'm sensitive to a horse and I'm sensitive to their nature and why they're being the way they are, you do that with a person. We are closer together because we're both predators. But when you become a partner with them, knowing why they're doing something, then you don't have to judge them because they're reacting to something that is caused by other means, other bad means, let's just say. So understanding people through nature and all that. That's why my book is important, because you learn that too with horses.
Exactly. Well, folks, thanks so much, Mark, for being with us. And don't forget to go to my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, where you find my programs, my radio shows, my courses, my store, all of those things. We look forward to seeing you there. And again, thank you so much, Mark, for being with us today.
You're very welcome. I totally enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.